Hello there, Smite fans. Welcome to the developer Q&A section. We got me, Ajax, lead designer of Smite, and Pawn and Clumsy, your favorite game designers on the Smite team, here to answer all of your questions about the Season 7 update.
Yeah.
It's a really good intro.
Really? That was good?
Well done, yeah.
Yeah.
Just winged it.
I think that's pretty solid.
So, you
Be
know,
the new Hindu.
no, I can't do what Hindu does, but I try. So this was a big update, big patch notes. We got a lot of things to discuss. We got a lot of feedback. We've already been listening and talking with Olympians and pros. The pro Discord, shout out to the pros. They've been
it's on fire.
really helpful and really awesome in their discussion the last couple days. So we have a lot of things to discuss, and the community wants to discuss with us too. So we're going to go over a couple of questions that we've collected, and then we're going to take a few more questions from chat, and we're going to just kind of make sure that everyone's on the same page when it comes to Season 7.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Sounds exciting.
So first things first, might be a little ahead of myself here, but we are already finalizing the first balance patch for Season 7 PTS. So Pawn, Clumsy, and I have been working all day yesterday and this morning to get in some additional balance changes that are mostly related to things in the patch notes already, but a few additional things based on community feedback in the first day of testing, and we already have that patch notes compiled. We're working on it being implemented and built into the game and tested so that it can launch later today when PTS comes back up. So that's pretty exciting. You guys feeling good about that?
Yeah, I think so. I think that patch is going to be pretty solid. I think hopefully that'll give us some really good PTS test over the weekend. We'll just see how people actually get to play around with all the things. And
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of hot topic things that the community talked about, as well as the pro Discord. And I think we addressed quite a few of those.
Right, so we're not going to go through all those balance notes now. Those will be posted with dev commentary later today before PTS goes up. And if we are going through a question today and we've already made a relevant change to the PTS, of course we'll cover it. So a couple of the questions we see that we're going to go over, like we've already changed based on your feedback. So we'll just share that as we go.
Yep.
So I guess we should get into the questions, huh?
Yeah. Also, Raytheon not going to put a shoe on the head, but it's not pre-recorded. This is live.
What is going on? Is Raythan's already trolling us in chat?
Yeah, Raytheon's trolling us in chat.
All right.
And
Twitch
you don't have a
already.
Madara shirt on.
I purposely
you
did
didn't?
not wear the Amaterasu shirt just for fun, just to mix it up a little bit, you know? I like to
said.
change my wardrobe from time to time, even though people might not believe it. Okay, well, let's get to the first questions. I'll read this one, but we'll take turns, okay? Because I can't be the only one trying to understand these usernames. So the first question, why was the UI not mentioned during the Season 7 update show? And do you have any plans for UI improvement? From you for archery, so archery, but with
Archery.
the 4, right?
Yes.
From this is from a Reddit comment, because we're gonna have questions from all different sources. So the UI is definitely a priority for us going forward. We didn't include anything in the patch notes because we didn't have a really clear description of, I guess, our plans going forward. Really, in the 7.1 patch, if you wanted to read more about the UI, you should be checking the Quality of Life Project Olympus section and the Bug Fixes section. There was a huge amount of UI stuff there. That's where everything was for 7.1. Going forward, our UI priorities are quality and bug fixing. Those are our main priorities right now. So we're trying really hard to continue to improve on the current UI. And that means, you know, we're open to lots of different things. We're open to artistic changes, stylistic changes, functionality changes, as well as features and bug fixing. But for right now, we had the keyboard and mouse update, which was a huge UI feature. That was really big. Still working through a lot of the issues with that. A lot of 7.1 was dedicated towards making sure the keyboard mouse support on consoles and gamepad support on PC was working smoothly.
Yep.
We also did a bunch of other things. So we fixed, like, the item builder issue has been fixed in 7.1 patch notes. A lot of people still spamming me with that. It's in the patch notes that we fixed it. So this helps to read
Yeah,
them.
have a look at
So
all
maybe
the
I should have
different
made, there's a whole section dedicated to UI in the patch notes. It's all bug fixes. So item builder, that one is fixed. I've been getting a lot of comments about it. It's fixed for 7.1. So in the short term, that's what we're really focusing on as we kind of plan out our UI priorities for the next year. As soon as we have more info on that, we'll release it to the community. And I mean, may I say a little spoiler alert, we do have a pretty hype UI thing that we're adding to the game in 7.2.
Oh, that thing?
Which you know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about. You guys
yeah.
know what I'm talking about. It's a feature the players have been asking for it to return to the game for quite a while. So it's big. And then once we get through that, we'll be continually looking for ways to improve our UI. We'll be continuing to work with the Olympians and the pros to find ways to improve it, find ways to fix bugs, find ways to make the functionality better, find ways to improve the art. But I don't feel like Season 7 wasn't really focused towards any sort of UI overhaul or anything like that. So it
Right.
didn't really make sense for us to incorporate into the core patch.
Right.
Into the core patch notes. Any other questions? Anything about UI that I should mention?
I think that was everything for UI.
Yeah, keyboard and mouse was a really big thing. So a lot of people were like, that's all? And it's like, yeah, that took a whole team months to do. So
Yeah.
that was a really big thing. So that's what was taking up a lot of our time. That's going to really pave the way for the future of crossplay for Smite for years to come.
Yep.
So getting that in and making sure we clean up all the issues with that is really important to us.
Cool.
You want to read the second question, Pon?
Yeah, let's go. So, what was the reasoning or process for deciding which magical items got percent pen? And this was from Old Man Potato on Twitter. Old Man Potato _.
Don't
What was
forget
the process for reasoning. Okay. So Clumsy, you wanna kick off on this one?
Yeah, so, I mean, not to reiterate all the things we talked about the blog post, all the things we talked about the patch as well, but Obsidian Shard going from the 15 to 45%, and, well, the one thing that we wanted to look at was, we knew we wanted to add a percent pen cap. We wanted to make sure that you needed to get at least 2 items if you really wanted to focus on the percent pen to get anywhere near the cap of 40%. And on doing so, we knew Obsidian Shard would be one of those. On doing so, we also needed to redistribute some of the smaller percent pen items, percent pen onto several different items. And we wanted to make sure that we were very specific about where we added them so that they were not only just going to be on niche items like this, Staff of Mirrodin getting 10%. I think that's a good place to put it on, but it's also not something you see in every single build. Pythagorean's piece, I think we talked about quite a while on the patch notes show about why the cooldown for the percent pen trade-off was okay. But for the most part, we wanted to make sure that it wasn't just going to be really easy in every single build to get 40% pen.
Right.
That we wanted to make sure that it had to be a deliberate choice you make. But we also wanted to make sure that if you wanted to go lifesteal, if you wanted to go each different type of stat, you were able to get access to at least one of these percent pen options. So it didn't feel like you're going to be pigeonholed out of getting any percent pen, because we do know it's going to be a pretty useful stat.
So the way I would describe it is that you used to just be able to buy Obsidian Shard.
Right, that's all
it.
you needed.
You're done.
And you would get 45% pen
For the targets that
against
matter.
tanks,
Yeah.
scaling, from one item. What we wanted to do was make you have to buy more items, but we didn't want to constrain builds. We want to open up builds.
Yep.
So now, in order to get that 40% pen, you're going to have to buy at least 2 items, and then your choices are limited in that sense. If you want to make your build even more flexible and still have more pen, you have to spread it out between even more pen items, like the 10%ers.
Right.
And really the goal between the two 20% pens and the rest of the 10 was to have an item from each magical item subcategory, right? So that way, no matter what type of build you're going for, if you want to itemize into some pen, you feel like there's an item that fits your build. Either synergizing with the stats you already have, or giving you like that one lifesteal. Like some mages don't want a lot of lifesteal, they just want one lifesteal item and one pen item, and that'd be okay. And we've kind of tried to design these items, we put it tactically in places to meet these goals.
Right.
Yeah, and if you see, like, I think Spear of the Magus actually kind of exemplifies that. When you have an item, like if there were like particular percent pen combinations that were the best, or they were really for specific characters, you see Spear of the Magus situation where mages who use that item really well were the dominant picks. If you had percent pen more in like these narrow categories where like you kind of went more offensive nature and lifesteal characters couldn't get these, well, lifesteal characters wouldn't have options to go for, and therefore they wouldn't be seen as potentially viable picks because of that. So we need to make sure options exist for everyone to avoid another Spear of the Magus situation.
And I think this is a pretty good time to address, because I know we're going to get into this later on as well, I think.
Sure.
But Obsidian Shard was a one-item wonder, right? And it would also pretty much constrain builds because all you needed was that one item to effectively delete 45 protections off of tanks.
45%.
Protections, yes, absolutely, which is quite a bit. Obsidian Shard's percent pen moving to many different items, while you may get some percent pen more easily, you are not getting the same amount of percent pen at all as easily as getting a single
And you're restricting
item.
all of your other build choices to do so. So it's explicitly harder to reach 40% pen in Season 7 than it was before.
And yeah, I think that's a really one point we want to make super clear, because Obsidian Shard was one item that gave you loads. Now you may get some that you didn't intend to, but you still can't get the same amount as easily. It's just not
Yeah, a lot of people going out there saying that mages are all going to be running around with 40% pen, and that's simply untrue.
Right.
If they want 40% pen, they're going to have to build into this very specific subset of items. That's going to cause them not to build other really important items. Book of Thoth, Gem of Isolation on the characters who need it, Bancroft's Talon, those types of things. If you really want that much pen, you have a hard time fitting everything into your build. So I think in most cases, mages are going to be running around the game with less penetration than they did before.
Yes, absolutely.
Someone will probably find a good build that optimizes for 40% pen and all the good stats and the good in between. But if you do that, you should have less power and less flat pen than you did last year as well. So you really can't there's no real build where mages have more of everything than last year. We really considered these changes actually really large nerfs to mages internally, and it's
Yeah.
been surprising for us to see the player feedback largely describing them as huge buffs. It's just interesting to us because it's not what we expected players to think when we went ahead and took their best 2 items in the entire game and reworked them.
Yeah, looking at chat previously and looking at chat, I mean, even just as we started, I saw an immediate question, because we can see chat on our other screen as well, that, hey, why did you guys buff mages so much? And I think we're reiterating, and we're not going to go over it too much, that mages overall, in pretty much all circumstances, actually got hit with nerfs, especially the Spear of Magus change.
Yeah. I say another person already asking me if I fixed item builder. Where were you 5 minutes ago?
Yeah. So on that note, I'm going to call you out
Yes.
specifically. Righteous Life.
in the patch notes.
We added a lot of power to several different items.
Sorry, Cliff.
But the amount of power that you got, the amount of effective power you got from the flat pen of Spear of Magus. I mean, Pon, what's the math that you? I always go to you for this. 'Cause
So yeah, this is complicated, but the TLDR was like a Scylla Crush with about 400 power. I think it was what 15 pen equated to like 125 power.
Right.
If you're talking about like, let's just say you did the same exact build that you're currently doing in live, where you maybe get like a Doom Orb, choose a focus, you get your Obsidian Shard, and you build a few power items. That same build, if you were to run it today, even with the net power that we added to a whole bunch of different places, is just a weaker build than it is going to be in Season 7. That being said, we've also opened opportunities for different build choices for you to go to kind of make up that difference, but in a healthier way that happens over the course of a game, rather than all at once up front in a single purchase.
And also with the Spear of Magus change, a lot of people aren't remembering that the Spear of Magus debuff that you get in Season 6 would apply to other subsequent abilities, while the new Season 7 Spear of Magus, you're only getting that on one ability. So that 36%, if you're getting all 6 stacks, is not going to be going to the damage of your next ability. And that's a really big change for Spear of Magus too.
True. Okay. Anything else on pen? I mean, we'll probably talk about it
I think
again
we're
as we
gonna-
talk
yeah,
about
probably.
interrelated issues, but
Yep.
Yeah.
we want to make sure we get through all these questions, and then we want to make sure we get to some Twitch chat questions because I see a lot being fired. So let's move on. Who wants to read this one? I feel like you got to have a little bit of acting when you read this one. It has the tone about it.
Listen,
Okay, go ahead.
Tyrannical Plate Helm. Just why? Why does this item exist with its stat spread and its passive? Also from Old Man Potato.
Yeah.
underscore.
Oh, Old Man Potato. He
Yep.
was on fire, I guess. Some poignant questions. All right, who wants to kick off this one?
Yeah, I can take a stab at it. So Tyrannical Plate Helm is an interesting item because we wanted to bring in this kind of minion buffing, pushing kind of item into the game, and so we were trying to figure out what kind of stats would go along with that item, what you'd want, where this item would fit into builds. We kind of looked at it as, okay, here's an item for bruiser mages. They're sacrificing potentially a % pen option or a flat pen option. Let's give them some power, some protection, so they can be forward, so they can actually take tower shots if they want to like take it for their minions, or if they want to continue fighting a tower afterwards. And then we're also going to have this passive that buffs them. Based off feedback, the cost made it a bit too efficient. The amount of power that we gave it was too efficient. You could build it, especially in the duo lane, and you could really
Solo lane.
duo and solo, where you can like really pressure other physical characters out, and not only do you have the minions helping you do that, but you also have this really efficient stat stick. So you are
Spoiler alert.
yeah,
Yeah,
you are
exactly.
right. Just why? Yeah, we've nerfed it in the upcoming.
In the PTS nerfs that will go live later today, we've nerfed it in 3 or 4 different stats.
Yeah, I
Have all
think
gotten
so.
nerfs to it.
And
Yeah,
Dynasty
so
Plate Helm as well, the tier 2 is going to be getting a cost increase as well, because
Right.
we understand those.
don't want you buying that at level 1.
Sure.
And we want Tyrannical Plate Helm to be about that interesting passive and mostly the minion aggression, the attack speed. So we overstatted it a little bit, honestly, and that's why we're going to roll it back. We're gonna nerf it a little bit before live. And I just like to throw in that with new items, although players like to really overreact to them because it makes sense. Like items are really intense; they affect the whole game. They can do some crazy things. If a new item doesn't have like a certain amount of interesting stats to it, nobody will buy it. Nobody. Like, we really have to push new items really hard. I know a lot of you out there, people who are here in this chat, you are pretty in tune with Smite. You're here listening to us talk to learn more. You're not the type of people I'm describing here because you probably understand when new items come out that they're pretty good. But a lot of people, they just keep buying what they've always bought. And new items have to be really interesting and really attractive to get people to break that habit. It's really habit-breaking formula. Breaking that is really hard. So new items, sometimes we go a little overboard on accident because of this for that feature. But we're happy to make changes based on actual balanced data and feedback.
And we also know that we're pretty excited about the passive. We like the direction. The stats, like during PTS or afterwards, they're pretty easy to tweak. So we got you.
Okay, so this next question, I requested I put this on this one, so because this wasn't really directed at us, but hey, one of our content creators asking things on the Twitter sphere, we might as well cover them, right? So,
Yeah.
from our friend Duke Sloth, he said, why weren't Warrior's Blessing, E-Staff, Transcendence, Heartseeker, Relic Dagger, Anti-Heal And he had even listed more things, I think, that I'm not sure are on here. Why weren't they nerfed? There's a lot of things he's wondering why weren't they nerfed. And without going into each thing individually, there's kind of 2 reasons we might not do something like this at the 7.1 change. And I just wanted to cover those more general concepts. One is that if we think that the class or character that this nerf is for is also heavily affected by other things in the patch, we do try to keep certain like anchor points consistent. So we change the map. We also don't want to nerf Blink at the same time because we want to see how these things that people are very used to having in their kit, how they play on the new map. So at a certain point, we feel like over-adjusting can be a problem. So some of these cases fall into that. And the other reason is we want to make sure that as many characters in the meta can explore at the beginning of the season. So if there's like a very specific niche item, maybe we don't want to nerf that because we want that character to continue to explore Season 7. And actually, that reasoning is why we've done some of the nerfs in the PTS change, because there's a few characters that were just overly oppressive, even in the 7.1 PTS. And then we want a wide array of gods to be tested at this type of the season. Like, this is the exciting time to like try to bust out the Anubis strategies again, right?
Yeah.
So like, if Achilles just is beating everybody all the time, then no one gets to try anything new in solo lane.
Right.
So we actually are adding some nerfs like that for those reasons. So these types of items, I think, generally fall into those categories. But maybe we can give a quick little, make sure we make Duke some justice and give him a quick little blurb about each item.
Yeah, I think so. So I guess I can look at Warrior's Blessing, right? Like we talked about Warrior's Blessing. We talked about solo lane in general, where we were making resource management this more kind of thing that they had to consider while they were laning. We made totem changes around that. We made blue buff changes around that. We made gladiator shield changes affecting how it scales in late game. This would just be another thing to basically throw into the complicated system that is a MOBA, to like all the other Season 7 map changes along with all the solo lane focus changes we made. This was a strong anchor point that people could rely on. And so tweaking that runs some risk as well.
Also something we're totally open to do in the upcoming patches. All of these items.
I think with all of them, right?
Yeah.
All of these items, things we're open to do. And we understand that some of these items were perceived as top items in the kit or in the role, in the class. But like we mentioned, sometimes it's good to keep some of those things that people can rely on, so not literally everything in your build has changed when you go to test out the new map. All right, so what about Ethereal Staff?
Well, Ethereal Staff runs into the similar kind of vein of, a lot of times you see it, you're still going to see it on the solo laners, any sort of Bruiser Guardians. I think one of the main ones that we all hear about a lot is Jormungandr still. But with a lot of the mana resource changes, and with these new items that are coming into play as well, we still want to see how that shifts out before changing what is an item that has come into light kind of towards the end of the last season.
Yeah.
And we don't want to just immediately start changing, especially with the changes with Penetration and Warlock Staff kind of going in. We know that these items might fight for the same spot, so we want to make sure that, you know, we don't leave one in the shadow too quickly.
So Transcendence and Heartseeker, again, so like Transcendence, we already have a lot of the next 2 questions are about Hunter viability. We didn't want to be nerfing that because of the concerns with Hunter viability. Really, one of our top priorities at any time in the game is making sure that all of the classes and all of the roles feel like they're impactful and they're necessary, and it's good to have someone in each of those positions in the game. We never want Hunters as a class to be unviable, right? That's horrible.
And Transcendence and Heartseeker also for like assassin junglers. We saw a lot of the junglers that were seeing the most success being Hydra's junglers. And so rather than nerfing that along with Transcendence and Heartseeker, just take one of the top ends down and then see how other...
And might I also add that those items were recently buffed, specifically Heartseeker, because of some late game assassin itemization. We don't really think that just because that item is popular or junglers are doing well, that's a reason to nerf that. We want to see how they go through the new season, the new map, with their end game items staying intact.
Yeah.
Then moving on to Relic Dagger, that one really is just like, I don't think that's really caught on yet.
Yeah, that's specifically even like only some SPL players.
Yeah, only some. This item is very strong.
It's very
good.
If you are a support player out there, you should be working this into your builds. You should, but a lot of times when these items become strong, some like obviously Duke is he pays really close attention to the meta and high-end SPL. He knows the strength of Relic Dagger. I would venture to say that like many of our players, not the type who are going to be here talking to us and commenting to us, they're not picking up this item yet.
No, I wouldn't say so.
So this item is really cool, really interesting. Also, we tend to not try to nerf support builds at the beginning of a new season. Supports, historically one of the roles that people feel most defensive to nerfs. Support is tough to convince people to get into. There's certain people who are really passionate for it. I've always considered myself a support main. That's great, but nerfing the support just feels bad because they're already doing their best to help everybody else. And then you go and nerf them, and it's like, come on,
They're trying.
man. Right? So we don't like nerfing support items. And then lastly, anti-heal.
This is an interesting
So
one.
this is almost
Yeah.
its own topic, but we've been on this one for a long time. So
Yeah, so I mean, healers in general in Smite have like a long history of when they are very strong and people feel that they're strong, it can be really tough to deal with them. When they feel weak, there's a very strong group of players who really like that kind of playstyle that feel like they're not getting like essentially the playstyle that they really want because they feel like they're too countered. And with the anti-heal adjustments that we made, I think we've actually found a pretty decent spot where people feel like they can counter healing. Healers generally don't feel like they're bad, and
Right.
we also have the stats to say that healers are doing quite
healers
well.
are really good and
Yes.
really have almost always been good. And even in times where the community thinks they're kind of bad, that means they maybe dropped a medium. Healers in Smite are very strong. So we think the anti-heal is really important to have. And we've seen a few discussions from a few, bigger community members kind of discussing anti-heal needing a nerf, and it's really caught me by surprise. I did not expect that. Like, healers are still very strong. We think the anti-heal is in a good place. This is the only one maybe on the list that I don't really agree with.
Yeah, and it's also, we have to be careful of the variance of the different types of players, right? Healers are always going to be good, as we've talked about, and in some of the lower elos as well, you may not see a lot of players picking up anti-heal as much
Right.
as you see the higher level players.
Right.
And in those games, healers are going to be even stronger than you would
And
usually
a
see.
common
You
result
wanna be very careful of that.
that comes from that discussion is just nerf all the healers.
Right.
And then nerf the anti-healing too, so it's not as necessary. And every time we've done anything like that, we've upset someone. Like, the healers either don't think it's fair to get nerfed, they don't see the balance there, they don't feel like it's a fair trade, like no matter what, it doesn't work out. So we're actually in a pretty good place right now with healers.
It's also worth noting Season 7 mid changes in regards to like that extra little area by the Heartbeat Camp.
Yeah.
You also have the amount of power we added, so healers essentially often scale off power, and so we've added a little
So
more
it's a
power.
bad. It'd be with all
this-
the mage changes. This would
yeah.
also be a bad time to
This
buff
is a,
healers.
Yeah, this is a really good example of
Right.
why MOBA, like how interconnected a MOBA is in general, how changes can have these ripple effects, and if you change too many things, you can't even really identify where a strength came from. We've already done a lot that is going to affect healers indirectly, and it's worth seeing how those kind of resolve first.
Yeah. I mean, it's safe to say, I understand why people want Divine Ruin is going to be really strong still because of flat pen.
Yep.
Pestilence has been one of the most effective defensive items in the game for a long time.
Yeah.
Still is. Contagion had its more niche use case, but it's not widespread. It's more meant for lane counters, right? But it's
Yeah.
still good into the late game as well. So I don't know. I feel pretty good about anti-heal. So all right. Thank you, Duke, for your questions.
Oh, you're gonna stick me with the.
Or he wasn't
the name?
even a question. It was more like he was just talking, and we decided to talk about it as well.
Yep.
Yeah, let's move on to the next discussion.
Raven.
Hunters.
So we has Hi-Rez essentially made hunters worthless going into Season 7 from Jimma9876 Hia4.
Close. I
Or
believe
yeah-
you probably just
yeah.
read the string of numbers
Hey.
Yeah,
and
probably.
letters. But yeah, this was a big discussion, and what we tried to do was anticipate a change and make changes before we had to see things play out.
Preemptively.
And this was based on our testing. We nerfed mages pretty considerably in our point of view on the penetration changes. Community didn't see it like that. So when we go ahead and they saw essentially kind of read the changes and heard us talking. We're like, okay, this is still pretty good for mages. This is good. I like the changes. They maybe even be stronger. And then we went ahead and nerfed hunters. They were very confused. So we were trying to make sure that the classes were on a more even playing field, but the community and the testing is really showing us that hunters do not need nerfs right now.
Yeah,
Right?
I think
Yes.
one of the trends that happened during the playtest cycle when we were nerfing penetration, or spreading out the penetration as well, is a train of thought when we're talking to some of the casters as well as in the Olympians and pros, is that if you nerf penetration and not power, but penetration as a whole too much, then you might get to the state where you just see hunters in both lanes more often, as we already saw a little bit in the previous seasons. And then that led us to believe that, okay, if hunters are now the only things that can effectively beat up tanks because of the penetration change, then maybe their penetration also needs to go down a little bit. But it was a preemptive change. That's something for PTS.
So
to
yeah,
look at.
spoiler alert again, in today's balance notes changes, we will be reverting the nerfs to Titan's Bane, Warrior's Bane, and Executioner, as
Full
well
revert.
as throwing in another, like, specifically choosing these 2 additional changes that closely relate to hunter viability that we think are going to make the quality of life for hunters way better.
Yeah, and mostly improve diversity of hunter picks.
Hunter picks, and even hopefully give a little bit more diversity to hunter builds.
Yeah.
And we've even discussed the possibility of, depending on how the mage changes go, applying similar design logic to hunters
Right,
in the
and
future.
that's coming up next.
Yeah.
So why were hunter pen items nerfed without adding other pens to other items like you did with mage items?
Right. So
at Gold
effectively, the first part, why are pen items nerfed? We're undoing that. That's not
Yes.
going to happen.
We'll
For
revert.
7-1, those are completely reverted. They're going to stay exactly the same. Now the question would really be, why wouldn't you do the same thing to Hunter Pen as you did to Mage Pen?
Yeah,
Which-
so it's complicated.
Magical and physical, let's just keep this one short maybe. Magical and
Yeah.
physical are very different in Smite. They have very different ways of being output. They affect very different classes. You know, the Hunter, Warrior, Assassin is very different than when you have to deal with things just Mage, Guardian.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things, really, and we felt like the Mage builds were the bigger problem based on complaints and community concerns and pro player concerns.
Yeah.
So, but if they go really well, I don't see why we wouldn't be open to trying to do something like we did with Titan or with Spear of the Magus and Obsidian, and trying to do the similar thing with Executioner and Titan's Bane. Right?
Exactly. So
Yeah.
we were definitely open to it.
So that would take us a few patches though. So we're going to be looking at anything like that would not be happening during PTS.
No, for sure.
That would be like 7.3, 7.4.
Just to clear some confusion in chat, no, not Mage Pen. We think the Mage Pen's gone over really well. The physical pen changes we did to kind of mirror some of what happened to Mage Pen, those physical ones are being reverted.
So the-
Executioner, Titan's Bane.
The PTS changes we've spoiled so far are Tyrannical Helm nerf and its tier 2, and then reverting, so buffing Executioner Titan's Bane. That's it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
For the most part.
So
I
I
think
think that's good on that one. This one's got to go to me, obviously.
Yeah, this is for
Why is the new Joust map so big? Says Choi Nim.
you. Yeah, you got
Gotta
that.
draw.
No,
the
Choi
N.
Nim.
Choi
There's-
Nim.
there's an I.
I said Nim.
Oh yeah, there it is. Yeah.
Choi Nim. So, the Joust map is bigger because we wanted to put more stuff on it. Like, pretty much. It's not as big as Classic Joust. Classic Joust, you could run way the heck out here, like outside the screen. Yes, my arms are a perfect representation of the map. And now we're in this nice middle place where current Joust was like, felt like assault, you know? So we're going someplace in between. It's not huge, but it gives you a lot more paths to move. It gives you more interesting ways to aggress into the enemy base or retreat through your base, especially like from your tower now. You can split directly instead of having to run directly to your
Yeah.
Phoenix. It gives us more room to place more jungle camps, and we try to keep jungle camps at kind of a reasonable distance away from each other. It feels really weird when jungle camps are right on top of each other and you're effectively sharing XP like while you clear them and stuff like that. So this map is bigger so we could give you those more interesting ways to play the game. We didn't want Joust to feel so much like Assault where you're literally just fighting, fighting, fighting. Of course, Joust is mostly fighting because there's no rotations, there's no like ganks per se. You're really just fighting, but we wanted to give you a more interesting battleground to fight on.
Yeah, and there's a lot of really interesting fights that I've just seen in people testing where like the red buff placement, the small experience camp placement,
Yeah.
how you can actually path to blue from that location, like all those things have created like some really interesting fighting moments that wouldn't have happened on the current Joust.
And more decision making in
Yeah.
your movement. Where in current Joust, you generally like you went to lane to blue. That was the only way to go. You didn't really have a lot of safe like side paths and other things like that, especially chasing through the
Yeah.
people through the jungle and escaping and things like that. You would generally just try to start ninja recalling, right? And in current Joust, that would work most of the time because you weren't getting away because there's one path out. So yeah, I'm really excited about new Joust. I think it's been really fun. Played it on PTS yesterday with some people. We had a great time.
So, do you want to take a stab at the next one?
With the addition of physical Asclepius, is there an idea or potential for physical Lotus Crown from Vafi?
Honestly, never even thought about this.
Yeah,
idea.
it's not something that crosses
We
my
don't
mind.
try to make physical and magical counterparts for everything.
No.
That's not a goal for us. We do that to fit a specific need or desire. So that would mean an item that only physical characters can buy that when they heal,
When they heal
themselves
There's
or
just-
others, they get a bonus.
for them and
Shield?
For, yeah.
Yeah, so I
There's
guess
just
that
not enough
It's
physical
kind of have a
healers,
lot of
really.
overlap with Shield of Regrowth because it feels like 'cause
Yeah.
physical healers are more self-healers. So I feel like this
Right.
is mostly like a self-preservation item, which Shield of Regrowth is already pretty dang good at doing.
Yeah, so where we've made the mirrors is the physical version, the physical protection version of Pestilence, which
Right.
filled a specific role of there's a healer that I need that like has some good self-sustain. I want to reduce that deals physical damage. That makes sense.
Right.
The new Cataceus shield
Yeah.
makes sense because not only are there some physical healers, but a lot of physical healers have that self-sustain. Lifesteal also exists.
Right.
Where this one, this would really only, if we want to have the exact kind of analog, it would really only affect Guan and Horus for teams, which it is a team utility item. And then for some specific characters, they're
This
self-healing.
to me
Right,
sounds
it's
like
just-
it would fit better as like a small sub item or like sub-component on Shield of Regrowth
Right,
or
exactly.
Caduceus Shield.
It's just not as applicable for everyone else's.
Caduceus Shield.
It's one of
Cataceus.
those.
I think it would fit better on those than being its own new item. But it's an interesting suggestion. We had never thought about it. So thank you, Vavafi. We'll keep it in mind as we go forward for future items. All right, moving on. Will there be surprise gods showing up like last year that weren't in the trailer from Bray Bray MK?
I feel like this is a you question.
I know, I gotta be really careful here because I'm not trying to spoil anything. I don't want to give you any hints to any gods in any way. So, what was in the trailer?
Like 3 things.
The
Yeah.
warrior character rising above, which is the next character, which you've already got some big hints. If you played PTS,
Yeah.
you saw some imagery that might have given you hints to that. There's Baba Yaga, which I can say, okay, that one's
Yes.
easy. We did telling you
I
Baba
don't. I still
Yaga
don't
is
say that
coming.
out loud for some
The
reason.
Yeah.
next character, like the deep down, dark,
Whatever that might be.
underwater,
Yeah, who knows?
so we can't. Then the Night Sky
Yes,
character,
that was the night sky.
and then the Fluffball character. That
Yeah.
was it?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, so there's definitely at least one more god after that at the end of season 6. That's not in the trailer. So that's
That
the
is
question.
planned.
There's at least one. But the thing is with that, and the reason they're not in the trailer is because that like they launch right around the beginning or the end of the year, and they launch right around HRX. So it's like a lot of times we plan that god more individually to kind of start the next cycle.
Yeah.
So depending on how the schedule works out, you might feel like they fit more into season 8, I guess, than season 7. But
Right.
there's definitely one god then that's not in that trailer that is still probably going to be launching at the end of next year or end of this year.
Yeah.
Not in season 8, but at the very end of season 7, there most likely will be. So there's one. So there will be, and then of course we have tons more gods after that. So-
Did we get through that properly without using like any pronouns or anything that was any hint? I think
I
so.
think we actually.
When I say god, I almost always refer to god or goddess.
Yeah.
Like,
the tiniest of things was there, but I think it's fine.
I think everything
Don't
I
worry
said
about
is
it.
was
I noticed
already
in
in
the
the
chat.
trailer.
So revisit that clip then, watch it over 10 times to see what I'm talking about. But it's super tiny.
Okay. Whew, that one's careful. I'm wearing kitty
maybe
cat
I'm lying.
That you're trolling.
Okay. So,
Okay, next one.
okay, the season pass.
Yeah,
I
so-
have some notes on this so we don't mess it up.
Okay, cool.
The question is, how much is the 2020 season pass? How much is it? So I have this prepared statement from my team just so we don't make any mistakes. The season pass will cost $39.99 US dollars. So $40. But it gets you 1,000 gems straight up, which is like half of that or something like
Yeah.
that, depending on your region. And then it gets you the limited Zeus skin, the limited Zeus loading screen, the player title, and the limited recolors for the gods this year. And the one thing that I was going to mention again, additionally with this is that people were confused about some of the systems here. If you own the God Pack, nothing changes here. Nothing is changing to you.
Yes.
If you own the God Pack, everything works completely as normal. Nothing to worry about. You will get all the gods forever and smite forever. But if you don't own the God Pack, this would be a way to just get this year's gods, as well as all this other stuff. If you already own the God Pack, there's no discount, there's no combination of things here in that way. So this is a really cool way to unlock the stuff just for this year, if you're really excited about it and you don't own the God Pack already. Also, we will be doing additionally something called the Digital Deluxe Edition for $49.99, so $50, which gets you the God Pack and the Season Pass. So if you really want everything and you still haven't gotten into that God Pack yet, this would be a good time to do it. So it's effectively like we're doing a little God Pack sale at the same time as we launch this. I think that was everything that people were really asking about. A lot of people thinking we were taking away their gods for this year. That's not
No,
the case. The new limited recolors though, and recolors I really love recolors. Like obviously we're mythology nerds, so like I like using base skins a lot.
Right.
And so like I love recolors. So I'm really excited for this one because I mean I love Anubis too much. I can't be cyber Anubis. I want to be actually the Egyptian god of the dead Anubis. That's like what I like about him. But I mean we do make some badass skins too, so it's a tough call. Okay. So one more tough. Oh, they saved all three of these tricky ones for me at the very end here as they snuck them in on me. You should have spread these out. All right. So is PTS ever gonna be on what? Is PTS ever gonna be on console someday? From MN Star.
Munsa.
Munsta. All right. What did I do before I answered this?
You were just like the way you delivered that line, like
Spazzing out. Yeah. Okay, so PTS on console. It is something we've been actively working on. It's much more complicated than PC though, mainly because of console certification processes. So if you're gonna do console PTS, your console builds have to be certified. Your PTS builds have to be certified. So right now, like we're delivering you a balance patch one day after PTS went live. If we had console PTS, we would not be able to do that. Console PTS would either have to be separated, so it's not crossplay with PC, and it'd have to be on its own PTS update schedule, which means that we would then get bugs that are already fixed, that are like fixed in PC but not shipped yet in console, and it would require a lot of our team to like supply more certifications. So it's really, there's a lot more to it than it sounds. From the development side, from actually publishing and fixing and incorporating the builds and getting it back up for you to play. You can even ask the PC players, even in PTS, we take it down, we fix it, we put it back up. We do that a lot because that's important to us to get all the fixes and changes that we need. And on console, it's just like 10 times harder. So a lot of the games that do this update their game way less frequently than us.
Yeah.
So a lot of games that do a console PTS, they update their game every quarter, every 6 months, every year. Smite is every month. So doing something like this at this rapidly of a pace, really hard.
And that's even us slowed down.
Oh yeah, right? And we've even slowed down, which made it more possible. In the 2-week schedule, impossible.
Yeah.
The 2-week schedule.
Now it's possible, and we have been working toward it. We are still looking into these issues to see if we can come up with something that works for it. But as usual, when people ask me about these types of things, I try to tell them about all of the considerations we have to make. It's not like this is a clear yes or no, or is it something that we do want to do or not to do? These are all the things we have to keep in mind and have to go through. And bug fixing is really important to us, and we've been trying to continually ramp that up. I think Season 6 was actually a really good year for bug fixing. I know the most recent patch of Season 6 was not as good as the rest of Season 6 from a bug fixing perspective. Yeah, then we had one big miss, but I think it's really a noticeable improvement from previous years. So we're gonna keep trying to keep that going, keep improving on that. And PTS has already been super helpful for 7.1.
Yeah.
And obviously we would love to get more people in there. We'd love to get console players in there, but those are all of the hurdles that we still have to tackle and understand and get working before we can do console PTS. So we're making progress, but still a ways off. Okay, those are all of the pre-prepared questions we had. So,
Yeah, that's everything.
and I think we covered everything. Yeah. I think we covered everything on our main talking points. So we want to make sure we get some chat questions and live questions. So Isaiah is going to help us by bringing up any questions that he feels like have been asked like multiple times or a lot of people want to know. Or we're also just going to kind of like look at chat and we'll try to grab stuff as we go.
Let's see.
Some things are hard, some things are fast, some things are long. Oh man, there's a lot of things just like buffing random specific items.
Oh, yeah, here we go. Okay.
The Void Shield one, is that the one you want to tackle?
I mean, they've kind of scrolled past at this point, so rip.
Which one did you say, oh?
Oh, it was, now I've forgotten, because now it's past.
Oh my god, I'm sorry.
Oh no.
Why not buff Mage's Blessing?
Why does Odin's hit for 3 something at level 1? We're nerfing that too.
Yeah, there you go. Another spoiler.
Nerf today.
BTS.
Nerf are coming out today.
There was one about like Tears passive, but I didn't see the follow-up stuff related.
I think
to
they were
it.
just saying it seems
Tears,
weak.
Tears passive has historically been good, but I think now it might be a little bit outdated. Was pretty much the gist of that message.
Oh, okay.
With the reducing all.
Something we could look at.
Crowd
I
control to
don't
one
feel like
second.
people are immediately thinking Tyr needs more buffs after what we buffed
I mean,
with him
especially
last
with the
year.
knock-up we had to change.
Yeah, so that's something we can take a look at.
Mage's Blessing, I think we just want to be careful with all the different mage items that we've done in the optimizations, as well as the restored artifact change as well. Just make sure that.
Oh,
they're
why
not
not?
mistaken.
Why not nerf Doomorb? That's a good one. I think that was
Oh,
even
yeah.
in Duke's tweet too.
Yeah.
But we didn't put it on this thing. Would you consider that kind of the core, like one of those core mage items that with everything else changing, we didn't really want to change?
Yeah, I mean, we effectively were looking to add power in quite a lot of places, and Doom War is one that we looked at and was like, okay, well, it's a little bit strong towards the mid to end of Season 6, and it's kind of some of the things that actually, Doom War was one of the reasons why mages got played again in the SPL to combat hunters in the mid lane. So
Yeah, we were in a nervous part of the year where
Yeah.
we're like,
Right.
no one's playing mages. We were
Yeah.
seeing a double hunter comp. That was scary.
while effectively, if everything was staying the same, we could have nerfed Doom War, but with all the other changes and increasing power everywhere else, it seemed a right place to just keep it the same and see if it's even useful with its price cost, and with the fact that it has no percent pennant or anything like that into the new season.
This brings some other important notion too, which is a lot of people are looking at these changes in a vacuum.
Yes.
Especially things like E-Staff and Doomorb. They're like, this item was good, needs to not be so good all the time, nerf it. But when you look at the entire scope of all of the mage changes, it's important to keep in mind that the priorities will be changing for mages, and certain things might not be as rushable, as easy anymore. Certain things, now that you don't have Spear of the Magus to complement your Doom Orb, that's going to hurt some characters like that. You're going to have to itemize into different things, so those are going to change. And this leads me to one really distinct item that we said we wanted to talk about today, which is Warlock Staff.
Right.
So this is the exact same discussion to go with Warlock Staff. A lot of people are like, this item was already bad, why are you nerfing it? It's kind of because we've been testing in this environment for a while, and we found that with its percent penetration built into it, being able to rush this item and be incredibly tanky and have really good damage across lots of different opponents, this item was just OP to start the game with. It was unbeatable in our testing.
Yeah, we actually had a few tests where we were like, just don't build this just so we can actually see what other items are doing, because it was so dominant in our early tests. There was like safety, because like there's also like the extra ward we were learning to start playing with. There was extra safety around the mid-heartbeat camp. You're able to rush it, and there's a lot of things going on at that point, and we were like, in its current state, it could potentially disrupt everything if it just had 10% more pen and we kept it the same.
We already made mages a little safer in the conquest map. So giving them this huge item to make them super safe in the early game was really, and it just gave an absurd amount of health, honestly. Let's just be honest. Like, for that much power, for magical power, you should not be getting that
And when
much
it's been
health
good, it's been unhealthy.
Right.
Yeah.
So we did a really heavy shift here. This item was nerfed, but not entirely, right? It got the new penetration, which is big, and it got a power change too.
Increased 25 power.
Yeah, so the power, that's pretty big. We did nerf the health, and that is like, we think that's going to be just much safer. So it does feel weird for us to heavily adjust an item that no one was buying, but when you look at everything together, and I think if you actually try this item, you'll find out that it's pretty dang good.
And,
So Zaya's actually got some questions. but-
one last thing I
anything
wanted
about
to-
Warlocks, yeah.
Not just about Warlocks, but I also, because I see a couple people thinking about the mage changes as well, and even if you are on board with us now that it is more nerfs than it is buffs, we also understand that with the map changes and with potentially the support being in the dual lane more and the new camps in mid lane, it is possible that mages are going to be getting a little bit more farm. So we are understanding that while we may have nerfed itemization a little bit, we may have increased the amount of gold they get. So we want to be very careful with all of these different things to see where they're at into the coming season.
New MOBAs are complicated.
Right, it's very possible that as a whole they might have, stay the same, gotten nerfed, gotten buffed. It's going to be hard to tell until we get you guys to play for us.
Cool. All right, let's take a few of these other questions that Isaiah's highlighted for us. So the first question is just clans, question mark, question mark, question mark. I did a blog post about clans a little while ago. I think a lot of that is still true. I think Smite clans, they do a really good job of encouraging you to join a clan. You can unlock some really cool things when you first get into a clan. And then really what we're trying to do is encourage you to join a clan. And then we want you to stay in the clan because you enjoy partying up with people, you enjoy playing with people of your skill level or with your sense of humor, or let you play Anubis jungle or whatever.
Yeah.
That's the real benefit of a clan. We don't really feel like it's super necessary to continually bribe people through in-game rewards to stay in a clan. When people say things like, it's meaningless to me to be in a clan now, I just don't agree with that. Like, you playing with your friends or with people that you want to play with in Smite is an incredibly different experience.
Yeah.
Many people would say it's a huge buff to their win percentage.
It's social
even.
incentives.
Yeah.
But that's not to say that we have written off clans entirely. Like, we're definitely considering clans. We've actually been doing a lot of behind the scenes work on clans, trying to come up with some pitches and some plans. But clans is also a massive UI update. So anything we would do with clans would strictly prevent us from doing other things to the UI. So if you're someone who wants UI changes and someone who wants clans, you have to pick one or the other. And we just don't have the team to do both. Like, our company would have to double in size. They're both really massive things. So we're trying to really focus on quality and bug fixing, like I mentioned earlier. And we're gonna keep an idea for clans and try to see what we can do, but we don't really have any major changes in the works. Okay, what was next?
Any updates on a possible Loki rework?
Yeah, of course.
There was a thread this morning about it.
Loki, we are still currently in the evaluation and planning stage for the Loki rework. If there will be
For
one
any
or not.
potential one, yeah.
Right. Currently, us three are still evaluating Loki to see if he fits the criteria and the goals, the methodology we've been doing. He has some very difficult design choices to be made if we were going to change him, right? And how we would go about doing those. So we're really trying to plan out, really what we're doing right now, to put it most honestly, is we're on paper trying out some rework designs to see if there's something that we feel like really fits all of our goals and all of our criteria.
We're not forcing any
So
situation.
we're in the brainstorming phase, the kind of blueprinting stage where we're trying things out, we're trying out some things on paper. When we feel like we get something pretty good, we're going to release the blog post that I've been talking about that will evaluate Loki and identify and kind of have a bit of the rough pitch. It'll probably be another, let's say, a month somewhere. I said it would be sometime in between like 7.1 and 7.2. So it'll probably be a bit before we launch that. And then, of course, we'll be wanting to collect community feedback from your average player, from you Loki mains, from everyone, just to see how people feel about the analysis we've done. And we want to be able to give you a pretty good plan of how we want to move forward with the rework and get feedback on any of that before we even start it.
Yeah.
Is really what it means. Because this one is just so hard to do. The god is still wildly popular. He's super unique. We know that he enrages some groups of players, but some other players would be absolutely terrified and distraught to see us remove something so interesting and different.
Yeah, he's interesting because he really pushes the bounds on, like, we've been very specific about what our rework criteria is. He pushes the bounds on like
And he's like
2 out of 4
on
of
the
those
line
points.
for all of them, right? It's really hard to determine. So his popularity has dropped, but he's still more popular than pretty much every other god we've ever reworked. Even though he's cut his own popularity in half since last year's nerf. So it's crazy. He's tough. We're still going to keep an eye on him, but we won't have any more information for you yet. All right, what's next? Are there going to be more battle passes through the year, or is it just one battle? No, there's going to be more. Battle passes will continue at the same pace they were in last year.
Cool.
Yeah.
Has there been any discussion on changing, reverting the blue buff nerf? So I guess another spoilers.
Yep, we're gonna buff blue buff today. When
Yeah.
PTS comes up today, blue buff will be buffed.
It's not a
Yeah.
revert, it's a buff.
We're
Yeah.
gonna keep the same concept but buff it.
Yeah, we still like the idea of encouraging the ability use that the forcing you to have to go lower mana to get more regen does. We're just gonna make it a little bit better.
Cool.
Can you explain the penetration now in layman's terms?
It's really we've
Yeah.
done it a few times, right?
TLDR, penetration, real good. In cases, 1 penetration equals like 15 power, right? When you have an item that gives 45% pen on a target that's like 200, you're getting 90 penetration. Obsidian Shard could have read in a lot of cases, I just have 250 power. Spear of the Magus could have also read, I just have 250 power. You buy these items and they spike your DPS so high, and it's really hard for anyone to understand why. Like the fact that we've had to explain this so many times, I think paints a picture of how difficult this kind of math was. And so we wanted to make mage damage specifically easier to understand. Now when you look at build and you see they've built 3 penetration items, it'll make sense why they're hurting the tank.
I feel like I'm having to read a lot in that TLDR.
That is
sorry,
the
I'm
most
sorry.
TLDR I could do.
New Mage Pen makes
Be
them
Kevin.
do
Be Kevin from The Office.
Mage Pen real good, new Mage Pen way worse. More variability though,
Yeah.
and physical pen reverting in PTS.
So in season 6, it was why buy 6 item when 2 item do trick.
yeah, you're right.
2 item do trick. But now you actually have to buy more. So
Okay.
really, you could just get shard spear and you're done.
Yes.
And you pretty much have great
covered
damage
all
against
bases.
everyone.
Yeah.
We didn't like that. So that's what we're really changing. So I don't understand this next question you have highlight. Can we get solo queue playlist?
Is
Like a music playlist?
Yeah, is it a queue?
no,
You want a new mode?
is this specifically a
I don't get it.
queue in and I only ever get paired with other solos? Is that the question?
No, wait, that doesn't
Yes.
make sense.
Yes,
I
that
don't
is
get
the
it.
question.
You don't get paired with
Yeah,
anyone.
so the idea is
Oh,
I queue
oh,
into
oh.
a conquest and I don't have to play against any of the party members.
So
Which is,
party sizes.
yeah.
Oh, okay. So it has to do with party sizes and queuing. So we don't plan on splitting our ranked player base, that's for sure. So no. We don't ever plan to introduce like a solo queue only, a 2 to 4 member party queue, and a 5-man queue as 3 separate queues. You would be in that queue all day, honestly.
Yeah, I
or
mean,
you would be complaining about matchmaking.
Effectively, matchmaking is just going to get worse if you do that in any
Yeah.
way.
And in casuals, you can queue with parties of all size, so maybe it would make more sense in normal conquest, but even then we'd still be splitting the player base, which we generally don't want to do. So
We do a lot behind the scenes to make parties work better and be fair to be matched against. Sometimes
Yeah.
that breaks down, especially in like odd hours or kind of like more narrow queues, but we do our best to make sure those matches are fair.
Yep. All right, and one more he had. Are they going to change daily login bonuses? Or are you going to change the VGS? Right now, we have no plans to do either of those things. One thing I will note is if you read the Season 7 patch notes, which seems like most people didn't read these sections, we are changing the way that you get your daily login. So they're going to be auto-claimed again.
Yep.
So normally, you used to be auto-claimed. We changed them, you had to go claim them. But in 7.1, when you load into the game, you will automatically get your daily login reward. And when you know the new acquisition screen we did, there's going to be a new section in that screen that pops up when you first join the game that shows your reward and shows you the calendar where you are. So daily logins will now be easier to obtain and easier to see. And then we'll probably leave it like that for a while. We don't plan on adopting the Paladin systems for VGS or daily login, but it is interesting to learn from. Like, we're interested to watch them and see how those things go and see what the metrics and data look like inside, but we don't plan on doing it right now. Will we ever get ranked crossplay? I would love to give you all ranked crossplay. I think you have to decide that you want ranked crossplay.
Yeah,
Right? That's it.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question of do you try and keep them, like, the controls will help a lot, right? So that way, like, now you're being matched by control scheme.
Right,
So at
so
least those will be
platform
fair.
doesn't even matter
But in
right now.
theory, matchmaking skill determines how good you are against other players. If you're able to perform against a Masters PC player using a controller or gamepad, then the matchmaking will determine that because you've been facing against them and shown that you've been capable of it. It would just be a process of you have to train the data to have all that information, and people would have to play against each other for a while. So it's complicated. We understand the want for it and the wants against it.
I mean, honestly, I'm not sure if this is the best answer, but we believe that increasing the player pool for any of our modes is the best way to improve them.
Yes.
So combining PC and gamepad ranked would be a really big bonus in a lot of ways. The problem is the community perception. So we would probably get hate threads every day complaining about, I would have won that game if it wasn't for this person on another platform or whatever. And the fact that it's going to have some adjustment time, right? Like you mentioned, when you combine these two separately mathematical processes, they have to take time to average into each other. It's going to be a difficult transition, to say the least. Like if you're Masters on gamepad and you start playing against Masters PC, some of you will stay and some of you are gonna fall.
Yeah.
And it's gonna happen. And that's gonna frustrate both parties while that happens. So like it's just tricky. But I would really, Isaiah's typing again. Can you tell people Item Builder 6? Yes, I've already said it so many times. It's written in the patch notes. Item Builder is fixed in 7.1. It's in the patch notes.
Spam your friends.
It's in Season 7.
Item
It's
Builder
in the
fixed,
bug
AJ?
fix section. Item Builder's fixed.
Oh, okay.
It's in there. I put it in there. Maybe I forgot to put it in there. I definitely wrote it in there.
Will we ever get a casual
fixed.
conquest, but with picks and bans? I think this goes back to our kind of splitting the player pool, right?
Right.
We could create that queue. You could play it, but let's say half the people go to that and half the people stay in normal. You've essentially half the player pool for matchmaking, which is problematic and rough.
Similar question also here we have. Any chance for like an old adventures again? Like we brought a few back recently. That was really cool. Yep. Actually, I still need to go back and check the stats and see how popular those were. I wanted to wait until we concluded the Heimdall patch, which we still not quite there yet. See how that did. But that again can split modes, so we want to be careful with that. It really seems like our priority for Season 7 is quality and improving the quality of life and bug fixing of our core gameplay. So that means like this is similar, like I said with the UI, is going to be applied to the maps. So we want to continually make Conquest, Joust, and Arena, and Assault kind of like our big maps. Those the best they can be. Look at focusing on those as opposed to making more modes, splitting our player base up more. Smite thrives by the fact that we have all of these different modes, and it's really great that we have this nice little core group of them that can kind of give you a bunch of different experiences, but we do see significant risk and danger in adding even more modes.
Yeah, Smite's better for having the modes, but it's not a linear thing that if you just keep throwing more modes at it, it becomes a better game over time. There's a certain point where you're not focused on bringing the quality to each mode. You're splitting up the player base to playing different modes. Rather just focus on the ones that exist currently.
So no Smite Card 2 yet, just yet.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Not yet, okay.
So yeah, that's why we don't want to do any specific subcategories of ranked. No clan queue. That's not really something we're into. If we do a clan event that had to do with gameplay, it would be through playing the normal queues.
Yeah. Part of your
The
clan's
one thing we would be open to doing is, I think, looking at the match of the day type of thing.
Yeah, we've talked about that.
We've talked about that a bit. It's something we've still brainstormed. It's something we might visit. If you really want 5v5 Conquest, maybe that could be a match of the day.
Right.
If you really want something like an adventure, maybe that could be the match of the day. But we would not want to keep adding more queues. But that's kind of the rotational queue. That's kind of its goal. So I think it would be cool for us to explore more features with that. It's not a super high priority, but it's something we could look into. So we're almost out of time. Isaiah, do you have any other ones you feel like people really want to hear? Jungle's going to suck now. Anyone who's saying stuff like that, like play the PTS, feel things out. A lot of things has changed. We're getting told that the pros have literally been talking about nerfing jungle M's all day long. So I don't know where you got that from. Like,
Yeah, I think-
we're hearing stuff all over the place. You know, a lot of different conflicting feedback in some places. So that's why today's update, balance update, we feel like is stuff that we've heard people say from everywhere.
Anti-heal hard cap was one that popped up, which I think goes in the same vein as what we discussed earlier. We could add a cap to weaken anti-heal. We feel healers are generally effective. There's a lot going on in Season 7 that's going to change how they perform as a whole. We'd rather see that resolve first and how that changes things, and then maybe look at that more specifically.
Right. They say show my socks. They're kitty cats.
Oh.
It means nothing. I just like socks and I wear fun socks. Someone is posting a really large, salty rant about Jungle Clear, and like I'm telling you, you're overreacting. Jungle Clear is still pretty fast. The protections and health they received are, and the Assassin's Blessing buff.
Right.
Although
Yeah.
the numbers, like when you just compare them apples to apples, they don't look like they're exactly even, but when you actually apply them and the way they scale and power scales over the game, Jungler Clear has not really slowed down that much. And
He has a Hog.
We gave that have Hog too. And we gave junglers a head start even further
Yep.
Yeah.
in their jungle. So like Jungle Clear is gonna be great. So-
Generally, jungle tankiness as a whole has been something that a lot of junglers have wanted to add, so that while their clear is the same with Assassin's Blessing, everyone else is going to take a little bit longer. So they're still effectively doing a much better job.
And junglers also often split, like they often help red, they help the mid Harpy fight. They might split a little bit of wave in mid. When they come to gank, they might split a wave. We also increase the split bonus.
Yep.
Right there, again, this is kind of the theme of a lot of things is there's a lot that kind of like spreads out to a whole bunch of different parts of the game that all interconnect with each other. I don't think we've made any specific changes to make junglers incredibly bad. I would say junglers in overall are going to feel very similar. They have their new things to focus on. They have their new things to go
We've
for.
got really good
but-
feedback actually from the junglers so far who've been playing PTS.
10% CCR as well in speed buff.
Yeah,
Right.
actually pretty good.
Other things that I'm seeing a lot up there, people pitching us gods and asking questions about gods. We're not going to tell you the upcoming gods. If you want to try to influence us as far as upcoming gods, you need to make posts out in the public. We want to see widespread support for characters, then we can look into working them into our long-term planning. But if you're asking us on the show, is not going to do that.
Did we want to close out with Achilles? Because we were going to come back to that.
Oh, I almost forgot about Achilles. You have 3 minutes.
Okay,
Tell Reddit why they're wrong.
Quick, go.
that's a good way to set it up.
Sorry.
So Reddit thread today about Achilles and changing the Radiant Glory to be this thing that when you're in physical stance, you only get the physical component. When you're in defensive stance, you get the defensive bonus. That was actually something that we discussed internally when he was being developed. That's something that we talked about. We talked through what it would mean for the character, and we decided against it. And I have a few reasons why. It will help inform that Reddit discussion and see where it goes from there. So the first reason why is, in general, in Smite, stims are these abilities that have these more passive effects, so they need to be impactful for you to feel like they're actually doing something. We want to make sure Radiant Glory felt good. And it actually took quite a while for people to really realize that Radiant Glory was contributing so much to his success.
Even when it went live, it
Yeah.
took months, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like, I think that goes to show that kind of worry being more validated. The second reason is he does do that just softly, right? If you're in physical power stance, you have more power. That means the power percent increase is more effective. If you're in defensive stance, the protection increase, that's a percentage, will actually be better because you have those protections.
Right, so
it's just a soft version of it
because
rather
it's
than the
percentage.
super
Instead of it
binary
being
version.
yeah, right, exactly.
And so that level of variance is something that we were worried about, because we were worried also that one stance would just be dominant. We do see that offense is still like his kind of go-to stance, but he can flex defensive if his team really needs it. He can go that defensive stance and not feel too bad about it. Whereas if it was that binary, you really would only have one playstyle, whichever one was dominant. And if you ever had to switch stance for any reason, your build would be drastically changed because of it. And I think that's the design reasons why we didn't want to do that level of change, was the amount of variance it would introduce. He already does have that soft synergy. It's not as hardcore explicit as it could be, but that soft synergy is there. And we were also self-stim type abilities need to feel impactful.
Well, you also made points of that it could actually make him more bland.
Yeah.
Because you would be really locked into a certain playstyle possibly, and his whole goal is flexibility.
Yeah.
So doing that, I mean, I guess if it had less of a scaling component, more of a base component, that might work, but that would require a huge rework. But speaking of huge reworks, also, the players made an assumption that this ability would just be pretty much ready to go via code, and that's completely untrue.
Yeah.
Ability 2 right now does not know what stance Achilles is in. This would be a relatively large code update. It's not like a complete ability rework, but it's close. So this is not easy to just implement. This would take at least 7.2 to actually do, and then probably longer than that because we'd want to do a lot of heavy design and testing. So, I mean, we're glad that the community is coming up with like somewhat reasonable suggestions and getting excited about things, but the reasons for this being genius are incorrect, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And we want to close on the note, though, that we are going to nerf Achilles further.
Yes.
In
Yeah.
the PTS, immediately, 471, you have more nerfs coming. You'll see them later today, and he will be nerfed because we believe he was one stifling the lane, right? We want a lot of people to be trying a lot of things in solo. If Achilles is just there stomping you every game, that's not a really fun time to experiment. So we are open to nerfing him. We just wanted to give you more context on why we were nerfing him in a certain way, and we knew we would get questions about this really popular change that's circling on Reddit right now, so Paul wanted to give you background on why we would not do that change. So, and saying that was the last thing. I guess
Yeah, I
we're
think
done.
we're in a pretty good spot.
Yeah.
So thank you for everyone who stopped by. We'll continue to be really active in our Discord channels, on our Reddit and Twitter accounts to continue asking questions or answering questions, learning about how players' experiences are going on PTS, and we'll continue monitoring the feedback and the data from the game. And a lot of these suggestions you all are giving us towards things right now, we're definitely keeping those in mind for future updates. It's just Season 7 is pretty jam-packed right now.
Yeah.
We're mostly focusing on tweaks and fixes and small adjustments. If you're thinking about bigger changes, think about that for the future. Think about that for mid-season, and we will be listening.
And please continue playing PTS. It's going to be up for quite a bit while, and give us more feedback.
Yeah. Awesome.
Odin and Bastet are also getting nerfed today.
Surprise!
Oh.
All right.
I mean,
Goes out on that.
yeah,
Yeah.
It's good. Yeah, full patch notes will be available to read later.
they're going to come up in a few hours, and then the PTS will come up shortly after that. And then have fun. Play PTS this weekend. Let us know how it goes. Stream it. We'll watch. We'll be watching.
Yep. Have a good weekend.
Thanks.